Bates Motel Season 4, Episode 3, Till Death Do You Part. Now, this episode, we finally get to see that Romero and Norma actually get married. Romero, I don't know where he got that ring from, but when he did that, I was kind of as shocked as Norma was. I was like, dang, like, that's a huge, huge diamond compared to what I was expecting. I thought he would just give her, like, the gold, like, honestly, just the gold band. I really thought that's what he was going to give her. And then he pulls out this ring, and it's just freaking huge. And I was like, geez, like, that way more than I was expecting. But they get married in this episode. Of course, they have to kind of make things look convincing. So, of course, Romero actually moves in some of his stuff into the hotel, or into the house of the motel. And we actually get introduced to one of the people that he's been sleeping with, which has never really come up. Like, it was brought up earlier in the episode where I was like, I want names for these, random people you may have had encounters with, over some time. And then we actually meet one who was actually involved with some of the stuff that went down from the previous season, and with the guy that Romero killed at the end. All of his assets are being seized, and investigations are happening, and she's wondering if she's in trouble. And I feel like the reason they put that in there and they made it fairly important is because something might happen where she will get in trouble. And of course, Romero, being Romero, he's kind of involved in pretty much every illegal thing. He knows what's happening. So I think if she goes down, she might try to bring him down as well. I feel like that's why they introduced that. So pretty sure that's not going to be the only time we see this woman um, who is, doing money laundering. So a little worried about that, because it's like, there's, aside from the fact that he told this person who, once again, we never met her, so it's like, of course he told her, like, oh, I got married and stuff. But I feel like the main point of that was to kind of bring back some of the deeper things. And it's like, okay, this guy disappeared, which still no investigation on that, or anything of that regard. But he's gone, and certain things are happening with his money, and people are looking into stuff. And it just makes me wonder if somehow, a little bit later down the line, there will be sort of an investigation as to whether or not he was murdered. Like, the opening scene from the premiere, the boat seemed pretty far out. So I don't think that'll be the case where someone just stumbles across the boat or anything weird like that. But you never know. You never know what could possibly happen in this show. Things just get crazy, and then people have some issues. So that could happen, but I'm pretty sure this is not going to be the last time we end up seeing this woman. So I'm definitely looking forward to what they do with her character, which I'm pretty sure is going to involve Romero being in a little bit of trouble and having to hide some things. And even he felt that way because he took the money out of his house, which was in probably the best hiding place I've ever seen outside of just a flat out secret room. And it's, right by the fireplace under some bricks. So he was a little worried about that, so he gets the money out of the house and takes it to the motel. And I thought that was, that was something. Like, that was a ton of money, of course, and maybe he felt that she was looking into something a little extra, and that's why he did it. So he knows something may or may not come of that, so I'm looking forward to what they do with it. And then just the relationship between Norma and Romero in this episode, it kind of, it starts off a little weird because she's like, she was kind of confused. She forgot that, he'd have to move in and stuff. And, of course she's worried about Norman, and she doesn't really want to, kind of play up the idea of them being married, but they do kind of have to, and everyone, knows around the city and stuff. So, throughout the episode, I like how they actually do get closer and closer, and by the end, they officially end up together. They're about to be together at the end, which I thought they would do early on, because they had the dinner and stuff, and they got drunk. So, I was surprised that that didn't happen. And they also throw in, like, a little thing. I believe it's a reference to the movie, because oddly enough, I still haven't seen it. And at this point, now that I know the next season is going to be the last season, I was like, well, I'm just not even going to watch the movie until the series is over, because it would be weird to just, like, I might as well wait. But she mentioned, like, one day those stairs I'm going to, like, break my neck on those stairs. And I'm pretty sure that's how she dies in the movie. I'm just assuming, because it seemed like a reference. But I'm looking forward to where their relationship is going, based on, like, the promo from the Damien premiere, which I mentioned before. They kind of show a lot of stuff and how they seem to actually be getting close, and like, they actually enjoy being with each other. So I'm actually kind of looking forward to seeing how that's going to play out. Dylan comes back home, and he finds out that his buddy was actually going to leave, even though he was going to fire him anyway. So he was kind of mad. Like, he left a note, which it was a funny note, and it was a funny scene in general because he's like, "Here, I wrote you a note." I'm like, why didn't he just say it? You're about to leave, and he's right there. Like, why make him read the note? Which wasn't exactly full of words. It was like, "Hey, going to California," I believe is what it said, or something. Peace. Like the extra stuff's in the back. Peace. I'm like, okay, he really could have just told him that because there's no need for him to read that little letter. But he takes off. So Dylan, has an easy out, despite having wanted to, fire his buddy, who was gonna leave anyway. Like he was gonna leave without even telling him, like, oh, I left you a note. So his way was kind of crappier than Dylan actually coming back to fire him. So understandably, he was a little mad. Like, man, I was ready to fire him, but he was gonna just take off without anything. And I'm pretty sure he has a phone. It's not that hard. But whatever. The guy who, of course, Caleb just destroyed after that failed mission from the last season, he actually shows up again. He's still really, really messed up. He's like on double cane duty, which I don't think I've ever seen before. And I'm not sure what's gonna come of that. Like he mentions that he wants Caleb, and of course Dylan doesn't know where he's at. And he's like, all right, and he takes off, but it's really hard to ignore his character in general from the last season. He was kind of this weird character who was always like, oh, I want to make a deal with you and stuff, but he always was like sneaking around and stuff, and he always, just the way he spoke was really weird, and how he wanted to, seemingly how he kind of wanted to, get into the business, which of course Dylan is in as well. So I don't know what to really expect from him this season. He's still really messed up, so I mean, you can still be messed up and carry a gun. So I don't know what to expect from him, but I've never really trusted his character, and I still don't. And I don't know if it's worse now because, Caleb beat him up. So I don't think he wants revenge because he mentions, well, he wants it on Caleb, but I don't think he'll, take it out on Dylan to try to get back at Caleb. And I hope not, of course. But I don't really know what to expect from that. So hopefully things don't get too crazy with that guy, and Dylan can kind of just get out of there because that's what he wants to do anyway. His buddy's gone. He wanted to get rid of the whole thing anyway and kind of get into something a bit more legit. So hopefully all that pans out before this guy kind of recuperates and decides I'm just gonna attack Dylan to get back at Caleb. So don't know. I was curious if he was even going to be in the season. I figured he would because he was still around. He didn't get killed. So I figured he would show up again. But now that he's back, I'm actually really worried because I don't know. He seems fine. Like he only cares about, getting Caleb. But that could switch. If he feels like he can't get him, he could just be like, screw it. I'll just take you down if he wants to. So I don't know. We'll have to see what happens there. And then of course, we have Norman inside the Institute in this episode, and I really like what they did with him in the Institute, and we get to meet a new guy whose name, of course, I don't remember because I suck at names. But we get to meet him, and it's just a quick little scene, so I'm sure we'll get to see him more because they, introduced the guy. So we get to see him more, of course. We get to see Norman during his initial session where he's worried about his mother, and he feels like he can't say certain things because he cares too much about his mother, so he doesn't want her to be in trouble. And then when Norma actually shows up, he gets really, really mad at her, and he decides, you know what, I don't care. And now we're going to get into something very entertaining where he really talks about all these murders, which he believes his mother committed, and then of course they're going to find out that he's the one that did it, and he's crazy, so he saw his mother doing it. So I cannot wait for that to play out because, of course, they're going to be going after Norma because, like he said, basically that's the only thing that psychiatrists have to report between their patients is stuff about murders. Like if someone is believed to be a murderer, that's the only thing. Like everything else is completely, well, maybe like rape and stuff. I think like even little burglaries, they don't do. But I know like big stuff they have to talk about. It might be all crime. I don't know though. But I don't think it is. I think it's like the biggest stuff. So I'm very excited to see how that's going to play out because of course if Norma is having an issue, then so is her husband. So that's another thing for Romero, and he's already had a lot of, they're going to do the political thing again, like when the one guy was trying to take over and stuff. So I'm not sure how that's going to play out, but I feel like if Norma has an issue, Romero's going to have an issue as well. And of course, I'm assuming all this stuff is going to be figured out by the end. I don't know if season 5 is just going to be Norman on trial or something weird like that, but it's going to be crazy. Like, there has to be some way where they figure out that these people did die. Either they're going to figure out that they died and that Norman did it, or somehow it's going to be wiped away. But he's going to be saying certain things that kind of won't be released to public, stuff like that. So he'll be talking about, they'll go back to the teacher thing, and he'll talk about how she died specifically, maybe, and stuff like that. And then pretty much everyone else, either Bradley, who's already dead, so that's going to be like, can't prove that unless he, tells them about, where the car is. And then Emma's mom, who we find out was at least at one point near the pit, because her earring is found by the guys and they give it to Norma. So, she's somewhere, like, she's not in the pit, because of course they checked it in Norma checked it in the last episode. So she's not in the pit, but at one point she was near it. So somewhere in that area, she's somewhere around the motel or something. And it's still this really weird thing where it's like, all right, so her earring was there. We had, we had like little clues for like a really weird death trail almost, because we had her, of course, seemingly killed on the couch, and then she woke up when Norman was trying to put her in the freezer. And so he was able to do that. I'm assuming she died in the freezer, like he just stayed there until she, froze to death. And then he dragged her out, and at one point her earring dropped off, but he never put her in the pit. So she's somewhere nearby. Maybe, they only have one car, so I don't think he could have done that because Norma was gone. So he would have had to have physically dragged her somewhere else. So she has to be close by. Like, she's probably in the forest, like right across the street or something crazy. But they're showing like these little pieces of this weird trail, and she's somewhere in the area, but we just still don't know where. And I think that's going to be a big component to really what's going to happen throughout this season. Although I feel like that probably still won't happen until closer to the end of the season, where we find out where she's buried. And it might not happen until the end of the season, and then that is like the trigger for all of, the final season of the series. So I don't know, how many more clues we're going to get, or when they will, do the reveal of where Emma's mom's body is. But I'm definitely looking forward to that happening, because I know someone's going to find it. If it's Norma, then it might answer some questions for her about Norman, because she'll know for sure that she kind of knows that he did it. She knows that he killed his teacher, so this will kind of be like the second thing, and it'll be a lot harder for her to ignore, because only two people knew about this woman being in town, and that's Norma and Norman. So if she finds her dead, then it's kind of like, okay, the only possible explanation is that Norman did it. And he kind of talked about how, oh, you did this and you killed the woman with the red hair and all that stuff. So it'll be a little hard for her to ignore it this time. Like with the teacher, all these possibilities for what may have happened, like, oh, he wasn't there when she died and this and that. No way to ignore it with Emma's mom. I don't think, at least. I'm sure they'll probably find a way, because she'll want to protect her son. But from my point of view, I don't really see it there being any way out of it. But we'll have to wait and see. But definitely a great ending, with Norman basically admitting, like, hey, my mother is the one that killed all these people, which of course we know is not true. So I'm very excited to see how that plays out. But of course, I definitely want to know what you guys thought about this episode. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And of course, I have to ask how you guys think Norman's, I guess we can't really call it like revelations to the psychiatrist, because it's all, it's in his head. He thinks he's revealing something big, but, well, he's revealing something big, but not in the way that he thinks he is. So I want to know how you guys think that that's really going to play out, because I feel like ultimately it'll just come down to, maybe he has of course, he'll think he'll be diagnosed as having this weird connection with his mother because it's really weird. But I don't think they'll kind of, open up the murder investigations or anything like that. I think somehow Norma's gonna have some issues, but I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. And maybe they will reveal the body before the end of the season, and maybe Norma will end up on trial because Norman will say like, "Oh, this is where the body is." He might just flat out say it, and then oh crap! Now that I think about it, they might do it that way because Norman has the earring, and people always assume if you have like one random thing from the dead person, it means you did it because everyone just loves to keep trinkets, I guess. But when you do have the earring, it is kind of weird evidence on you. So they might actually do it that way. Now that I think about it, Norma might end up on trial, and then they'll have to prove that she's innocent, despite the only evidence is that earring. But I'm sure there'll be something else. And plus, Norman's testimony against her could make things a little more difficult as well. But now that I think about it, I'm pretty sure that might be how this season plays out. Of course, she'll be proven innocent because she's not the one that did it, and they could probably just say like, "Hey, I was with Romero during this time," and then that could kind of bring in some of the other little issues, because that was before they were married. So he may or may not have ended up being with that woman, as she was driving back home or something, weird like that. But definitely want to know your expectations for how all this stuff is going to play out. And of course, what you guys thought about this episode in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.